it's hard to get a date or draw a picture of the boundaries. We have sort of like, we know it extends further east and west, but I think a lot of that data has been destroyed and from development. And one analogy I could kind of describe the boundaries of a site is, let's say 1,000 years from now, they know Musqueam was here, and we know how big it is today on the boundaries, but 1,000 years from now we don't know the boundaries. But if an archaeologist dug us at someone's lot or address, and then that, let's say it was the band office lot, is, oh, that must be Musqueam because we exposed the band office, or they draw a circle around the band office. And that's, we know the Musqueam was bigger than that, but 1,000 years from now, that's what they have to go by. So, but, and then the same thing's happening today. You have to explain to people, oh, this must be the size of əsnaʔəm because there's the site boundary, but we don't know how far it extends.
I don't know why we're calling them museum collections. That's one thing that I don't agree with. They're not. They don't belong to them, and I don't believe they ever will. The whole process of colonialism and how they are the ones that should take them from the ground and move them to wherever they're supposed to go is wrong. And we're letting that happen. And I don't believe in it. And I'm not 100% agreeable for them to, they may not maintain them, and I'm hoping they come back to our cultural center after they've been processed, and I hate to use the word as well, but we have to, we live in this contemporary world. And maybe that's why people think it's so important for archaeologists or people who we have to work with to make things in their world right for them. So I believe that they should come home to where they originally came from, if they're even removed, and I don't even know why we have to remove them. I don't know why they can't just stay where they are. What is it in us as human beings that want to take things and put them on display when they were put in the ground for a reason? So I'm always not just agreeable to have them removed from the ground.
I call them belongings because when we dig into the earth, when archaeologists dig into the earth, they dig up graves. Many times they're grave sites. They're official grave robbers. And I've said that to the archaeologists. And many times people are buried with things that are important to them, or they are important to the family that is putting away their loved ones, for that person to be able to be in the other world, in the spiritual world, with their belongings with them, so that they can use them in the other world. And they belonged to somebody. They didn't just appear in some pile of dirt that was already carved or shaped or whatever it was used for. It belonged to someone. And that's how it was always explained to us. As a boy, the mortuary houses along Sela Drive were still existing. There were several mortuary houses that my older brother and I could see through the windows or through the cracks in the wall. And we could see things in there that were very, very interesting to young boys, and asked our mom, how do we get in there? And there's stuff in there. And Mom said, don't you touch that. It belongs to somebody. Belongs to whom? Belongs to that person that's in that house. So if that person's dead. but that's his belongings, his or her belongings. They belong to that person. Leave it alone. They have to take it with them. And that's why I use the word belongings. Mm-hmm.
Bring them out and display them. Show we know and we understand. It's beautiful for grandchildren, nieces and nephews to see. They get to see. There's physical evidence beyond us. They just see Musqueam now. While those beautiful tools, those instruments, those household items, those beautiful things, it shows them that we're anchored here for 7,000 years. We're not only anchored here, but here's the beauty that we created while we're here.
I only raise it because at that point in time, I hated museums. I thought they were the worst thing that anybody could ever do. You know, they got these glass things with all our artifacts, what they call artifacts, which is our life well-being kind of. And then I changed. I got to a point where I was doing research on our beautiful swilkwath and our blankets, and I discovered a relationship with the museum that I never had expected because of my own bias. And I criticize the non-Aboriginal people for imposing their value, but I had the bias. And then as I went through the museums and I traveled to New York, I went to Washington, I went to all these different museums across the country and into the States. And I started to become aware of something else. Because of the influence and the kind of overpowering of the Europeans into our communities and how they destroyed so much of who we are with all of our regalia and everything, if it wasn't for the museums protecting them, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to go back and look at them, hold them, honor them in the way that they should be honored, and try to bring their life back again. And I think that the turning of awareness of the museum people themselves has done a lot for that. So I really am respectful of museums now. I think that as long as we engage and dialogue and work together to continue to bring those pieces back to life, and that's the key. They have to be brought back to life, in my opinion. So every one of them, in some way, can help the teaching that we're talking about with our young people. If we can start to bring those pieces back into our community in a way, and I'm not saying they have to store here, I realize they need certain things to protect them as air and everything, but as teaching tools, as reconnecting, as honoring the memory of those people who made all of those things, I think it's huge. And I really am thankful for museums now.
We bought the Fraser Arms Hotel not for economic purposes. We bought it to protect what was underneath the Fraser Arms Hotel, what was a part of əsnaʔəm. And for me, I think the logical next step for əsnaʔəm is to reassemble all of the land, because there are a number of pieces of land that are still not in the possession of Musqueam, and to be able to really protect əsnaʔəm in its whole entirety, we need to do that. And I think the parcels that we do have right now need to be protected. I think we have an understanding that we're not going to be doing anything underneath that land, and I think Musqueam is really on the right track to being able to protect the rest of the site.
And the site, as it is now, really does need protection, but I'm not confident that the province, under the Heritage Act, will do the job. I think we have to do some public education, more public education, to get support from people in the general public and from the property holders in the əsnaʔəm area. I think they're interested, but they have an investment. And we have to come to terms with how do we resolve their interests and our interests and the public interest in protecting the history that's in the site.
What would I like to see happen with əsnaʔəm? Ideally, nothing. I'd like our ancestors to take back over. I'd like to see grass and trees and plants, flowers, If there needs to be a societal way to pretty it up, I think it'd be a park, wherein we could have a couple of house posts in commemoration, maybe a plaque. Parkland is the best possible use for it. I will go back to vigil mode if anybody tries to develop on it again. To be frank, though, I'd like to see nature reclaim it.
It means a lot to our whole community to protect that site. That's one of the oldest sites. We have to do whatever is in our power to make sure that we protect that whole site. Əsnaʔəm site, with the attention that happened to it this year, we have other properties there that we need to get back into our control. Those are our ancestors, our big, huge connection to the Morpole site.
It keeps that sense of pride. It keeps a sense of culture going forward. And we, as Aboriginal people, without culture, I've always said, if we lose our culture, we're just another municipality. And that's not who we are. Our grandparents fought to keep these things here, and it's not our place to give up that fight. If we were put here to be stewards, we will be stewards. And if all we have left is our voice, make it loud. I think that's our role. There's many little facets that will outreach from that, and everybody has their own job. But in unity, I think those are our two things. To make sure that they know it's not right, that these things are happening, and that we preserve our history moving forward. So in the ugly event we lose something, it's never lost if it's remembered.